welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel, the owner and creator here at the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. Today is Wednesday, and I don't know if you can hear from my voice, I am not feeling super great, but I absolutely had to get at least something together for today for my video. So even though I didn't feel great, I came in and got my video finished for you guys. It's not super long, but I at least, like I said, wanted to have something ready for you because I feel like it's been forever since I actually got to say hey and make a video. So I just wanted to give you a quick update too on what's going on with the rest of my life. As you know, if you watched the last video, we got our keys for our new house last Friday. Or on Friday, it seems like forever ago at this point. And we didn't get the keys until 5 o'clock in the evening, and by the time we had gotten just a few things in the house, it was already 10:30. So it was a very long day, but we got to sleep in our house for the first time Friday night. Then Saturday I had my open house here, so that was a really nice day, although a little long because I was a little overtired on Saturday. And then we spent Sunday and Monday basically getting our kitchen all set up and clean and our bathroom all set up, the two most important rooms in any house. So those rooms are pretty much done at this point. Our living room is okay, but it's been a little chaotic, as you can imagine. And then of course I came down with a cold. So I've been struggling just a little bit to get anything really accomplished. So that's kind of an update. For today's video, what I ended up doing was, if you remember the canning jar lid ornaments that I made for the last video, for this one, I used the outside of the rings. So I wanted to repurpose those as well. So I made little wreaths with them. I also threw in another little project that I did just to have a little bit beefier video for you guys today. So I hope you enjoy my projects and I hope you like today's video. And without further ado, let's get to the video. My first project is a super simple makeover of this little bird that I picked up not too long ago. I wanted to use him in my Christmas displays and I use a lot of gold. So I decided to go over him with some liquid patina called Golden Ticket by DIY. So I'm just painting on a couple coats of that Golden Ticket all over the little bird and letting it dry completely. Now, the liquid patina is a top coat, so you don't necessarily need to go over it with anything else to seal it. However, I went ahead and went over it with a little bit of dark wax by DIY. Now, I didn't brush or I didn't wipe any of the excess back on this. I just put a very light coat of that dark wax over it to simply add a little bit of age and patina. And then voila, I have a beautiful little piece for my Christmas displays. Now all of my next projects kind of tie together, but the first project I needed some flour sack cloth dyed, and so I'm showing you just how I do that. So I made a little bit of coffee, poured that into a container, and then I just put my flour sack cloth into the coffee and wring it out really well and set it aside to dry. And then you get this beautiful kind of patinaed, aged flour sack cloth. The next thing I do is take off all the hems around each side, and then I measure out 1 inch and I cut 1 inch segments off of the flour sack cloth, and then I just rip those segments off of the cloth so that I end up with 1 inch strips. I like to use these strips for a lot of different purposes, mostly in ribbons, but they're just nice to have around. Once I have all of my strips cut out, I like to lay them out in a pile and just kind of take off some of the loose strings as I go and get them kind of cleaned up and ready. Now, if you remember on my last video, I did some ornaments with canning jar lids that I'd picked up at Goodwill. Well, I used the flat inner portion of the canning jar lids for that video. And for this one, I am using the rings. So for this first project, I'm using one of the canning jar rings, and I'm cutting out strips of flour sack cloth along with strips of lace. And all I'm doing is tying each of those strips around the outside of the ring, just in a simple pulled square knot. And then I did 4 of the flour sack cloths and 1 lace, and then 4 more flour sack cloth, and then 1 lace, all the way around the entire canning jar ring until I had it completely covered. Once I was done tying on all my ribbon, I just went around and pulled all of the ribbon straight so that it wasn't quite so clumpy and ratty looking, and just kind of straightened everything back out. Then I grabbed my scissors and I just went around the entire wreath and cut off anything that looked like it was too long. So I just used my fingers kind of as a guide as far as the length, and I just went right around the entire thing and trimmed off anything that looked out of place. Then this little wreath is done, and I'll be adding embellishment to it a little bit later on. Now, I had actually went ahead and painted some of these canning jar lids because initially when I made my flat ornaments, I had planned on putting them back inside these rings. But when I was working on them, I decided they really didn't need the rings, and I figured I could use the rings for something else. So I had already painted them, which is what you can see I'm doing here. I'm just giving these a couple good coats of crinoline on the outside, and then I went around and did a couple good coats of the crinoline on the inside. Now, I had somebody ask me why I didn't just go ahead and spray paint these, which totally would have been a fine option. However, it's been kind of cold and a little bit damp here, and I find sometimes that isn't the best situation to use spray paint. Not to mention that I have to take the spray paint and my camera and all of my things outside and then paint and then drag everything back inside for it to dry. And it tends to kind of stink up my shop. So for me, even though it's a little bit tedious, I would rather just sit and paint my canning jar rings. So that's what I did. Now, once they were dry, I went ahead and sealed them with a little bit of Big Top, and then I had just kind of set these aside until I was ready to work on them further. Now for these, I kind of tossed around several different ideas to finish them. And I almost went ahead and did some more of the rag strip wreaths like that first one you saw me do. However, those are pretty darn time consuming. So I wanted something a little simpler and faster that I could do with these, but that still would be pretty enough that somebody would want to actually buy them and put them on their Christmas tree. So I looked around on Pinterest. It took me a minute to figure it out, but I finally landed on just wrapping different colors and textures of yarn and cording that I had on hand to create these wreaths. So the first one I'm making is with a yarn that has a little bit of golden thread weaved through it. And you saw I just kind of glued the starter piece to the back of the canning jar lid. And then I just went around and around and around the lid until I had wrapped the entire thing with that cording. Then I set that one aside and grabbed another one. For this one, I'm using really fat jute. Now this was a little bit stiff and a little bit harder to work with, but I kind of like the end result. So this one, I definitely had to keep each strip tight as I went around, just so that it kind of stayed together and there wasn't a lot of that white shining through. Once I got to the end, I really pulled and made sure everything was nice and tight before I put my last line in, and then I glued that down really well before I cut it off. Then this wreath is done. I just kind of went around and made sure all of the white was covered before I set it aside. For the next one, I'm using this beautiful fuzzy yarn that I had. And so this was probably one of the easier ones. The nice thing about this is you could just pull it tight. You didn't have to worry about having it get loose or be different thicknesses, depending on how tight you pulled it. The only thing I would say is that I had to kind of squish it around the canning jar ring just to make sure it was nice and tight. But it was pretty simple. And so I just wrapped again that canning jar lid with it until it was all covered, and then I glued down the end. Now I did also do a brown one with some similar yarn to the last one that I made. I just forgot to film any of that. Then it's on to embellishment, and for the first one I am making what I call a lasagna ribbon. So I'm using layers of flower sackcloth, lace, and ribbon, and I'm just layering those up until I'm happy with the arrangement and tying them in the middle with a piece of really thin jute. Then I simply gather that and glue it onto my wreath. Once I had my ribbon attached and nice and fluffed, I went ahead and added a little piece of bling that I found on Amazon. I've had these for ages. And then I went ahead and just cut the ribbons so that they were at a little bit of an angle and more even with each other. Last step was adding a little hanger with some thin jute, and then this wreath is done. For the wreath that I did in the fluffy brown yarn, I am just taking one of the pieces of flower sackcloth and cutting it into a pretty short little strip and then tying it into a square knot so that I've got two pieces layered together, and then I'm just gluing that to the top of my wreath. Then I had some other little beads that were more of an antiqued bronze with just a touch of bling in them. And so I'm just gluing 3 of those onto my wreath as well. For the one with the gold or with the ivory yarn with a little bit of gold in it, I did the same kind of ribbon, but for this one I added a piece of lace and again just tied those 3 pieces into a square knot and glued that to the top of the wreath. And then for this one I used some bling that I bought on Amazon that has more of a bronze or rose gold kind of look to it. I did remember to add a hanger kind of last minute. That was fun to try and tuck underneath the ribbon, let me tell you. And again, I just added 3 pieces of the bling around the bottom half of the wreath. And for this one, I'm using 2 pieces of lace together with a square knot. So I cut those at a little bit of an angle. And for these, I'm adding bling that has a little pearl right in the middle. I did also embellish the rag wreath. I just forgot to record that part. But I love how these all came out, and I really hope you guys do too. Here for today, guys. I hope you liked my projects and I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was definitely a lot of fun being able to use canning jar lids that somebody was going to throw away and make several different pretty cute, I think anyway, ornaments for your tree. I love how the wreaths came out. I saw other ideas on Pinterest that I might go back and try at some point. I just have not had the time or the energy, honestly, to do much more than what I did get done. So I'm hoping now that we're in our new house and life can kind of start settling back into a rhythm that things will be less chaotic and I can actually dedicate more time back in my kitchen to getting some projects done. I have really been craving to redo a piece of furniture. I haven't done one in a while, so I'm hoping maybe I can get into our storage unit and search around and find something for myself to do other than just smalls. So we'll see. Anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up. I so appreciate that. And if you haven't already, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and then just hit the little notification bell so you don't miss anything. And then don't forget to drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of my projects for today. And just a quick reminder too, the paint and products you see me use, which wasn't a whole lot this video, I understand, but I do carry DIY paint and products, Sweet Pickins milk paint and products, Roycycle Treasures decoupage papers, as well as some redesign with Prima. So if you're in need of any DIY products, definitely check those out at my website, and that's www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. And for Saturday's video, like I said, I'm really hoping to get back into my kitchen and get some work done. Hopefully by tomorrow I'll be feeling even better and be ready to rock and roll and get some things done. So join me for Saturday for that. Until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week and beginning of the weekend. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you on Saturday. Bye.